Hello there, and welcome to Simple Science for Sleep. What if I told you that right now, at this very moment, you're carrying something more precious than any treasure, something smaller than a speck of dust, yet containing more information than every book ever written? You are walking, breathing proof of the most magnificent library in existence. And tonight, we're going to step inside it together. Tonight, we're going somewhere truly special, somewhere few people think about, but everyone carries with them. Inside you right now, at this very moment, is the smallest library in the universe, and it holds more stories than all the books ever written. This isn't a metaphor, it's real as your heartbeat, as real as your breath. If you enjoy these quiet journeys into science, you're not alone. Thousands of friends join us here each night, exploring the wonders hiding in plain sight. If this brings you calm, if you find peace in these stories, consider subscribing. We're here every night with something new to discover. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from right now? What time is it there? Drop a comment below. It helps me feel connected to you, knowing that we're sharing this moment together, even though we might be worlds apart. Now, let's step inside this tiny library together. This library exists in every cell of your body, in your skin, in your bones, in your blood. Trillions of tiny rooms, and each one contains a complete copy of this library. The same library, the same stories, repeated over and over again. And what's written in these stories? Instructions, recipes, history, memory, everything that makes you, you. This is a place for calm curiosity tonight, a place where we can wonder together about the beautiful, hidden things that make life possible. So get comfortable, pull your blankets a little closer, let your shoulders drop. We're about to discover something beautiful. The library I'm talking about has a name you've probably heard before: DNA. 3 letters that represent something almost too small to imagine. But we're going to try anyway. Think about this for a moment. Every living thing on Earth has this library. Every person you've ever met. Every dog that's ever wagged its tail. Every tree swaying in the wind. Every flower opening to the sun. All of them carry these tiny libraries inside them. But what makes it a library? Well, a library stores information, right? It keeps it safe. It organizes it. It makes it possible to find what you need when you need it. Your DNA does exactly that. It stores the instructions for building a human being. Not just any human being. You, your exact height, your eye color, the way your voice sounds, the shape of your hands. All of it written down in a code so small you could never see it, even with the most powerful microscope. But before we see what's written in these books, we need to understand just how small this library really is. And that journey starts with something you can see. So, let's talk about size. Let's talk about how small can be. When we think about small things, we usually start with what we can see. A grain of sand, a sesame seed on a burger bun, a single strand of hair. These feel tiny to us, but we're going to go smaller, much smaller. Imagine you're holding a drop of water on your fingertip. Just one drop, clear and simple. Inside that single drop are millions of cells. Millions. each one too small to see without help. Now, pick just one of those cells, one tiny room in that drop of water. If that cell were the size of a house, a regular house you could walk into, our library would fit on the head of a pin. That's how small we're talking. But let's go slower. Let's zoom in step by step so you can really picture it. Start with your hand. You can see it right now, even in the dark. You know its shape, its size. Your hand is made of skin, and skin is made of cells. Millions and millions of them, packed together like bricks in a wall. Each cell is alive. Each one is working right now, as you listen to this. If you could zoom in close enough, you'd see that each cell looks like a tiny blob. Soft edges, filled with fluid, and that fluid, floating in the middle, is something special. The nucleus. That's where our library lives. The nucleus is like a room within a room, a vault inside the cell, protected, safe. And inside that vault, coiled up tight, is DNA, the library itself. Think about this. Your body has about 30 trillion cells. That's 30 with 12 zeros after it. A number so big, it's hard to imagine. And almost every single one of those cells contains a complete copy of your library. The same stories, the same instructions, repeated 30 trillion times. Why so many copies? Because cells need to read the instructions constantly. They need to know what to do, how to survive, how to work together, how to be part of you. But here's what makes it even more amazing. This library, this collection of information, is so small that if you unwound all the DNA from just one cell and stretched it out straight, it would only be about 2 meters long. About as tall as a door, 2 meters of information, coiled up so tight it fits inside something you can't even see. And if you took all the DNA from all 30 trillion cells in your body and stretched it out end to end, it would reach from Earth to the Sun and back, over 60 times to the Sun and back, all of it tucked away inside you. That's the magic of smallness. That's the wonder of how nature packs things away. And inside that impossibly tiny space, something magical is happening. Something that's been happening since the very beginning. The library has a shape, and it's unlike any building you've ever seen. Most libraries we know have shelves, rows and rows of them, books lined up, spines facing out. You walk down aisles, you reach up, you pull a book down. But this library is different. This library is shaped like a ladder, a twisted ladder, a ladder that someone picked up and spun around and around until it spiraled into something beautiful. Scientists call it a double helix, but let's just call it what it looks like. A twisted ladder. Picture a rope ladder, the kind you might climb on a playground or see hanging from a treehouse. 2 long ropes on the sides, rungs in between, connecting them. Now, imagine someone holding both ends of that ladder and twisting it. Slowly, gently, the whole thing begins to spiral. The ropes wind around each other. The rungs turn and twist, but everything stays connected. That's the shape of DNA. 2 long railings that spiral around each other, rising up like a staircase that goes nowhere and everywhere at once. And between those railings, connecting them, are the rungs. Thousands and thousands of rungs, each one a step in this twisted climb. The railings are made of sugar and something called phosphate. But you don't need to remember those words. Just know that they're strong. They hold everything together. They protect what's important. And what's important is the rungs, because the rungs are where the information lives. The rungs are where the story is written. Each rung is made of two pieces that fit together perfectly, like puzzle pieces, like hands holding each other. They connect in the middle, linking one railing to the other. And here's what's beautiful about it. The whole structure is stable, but it's not rigid. It can unzip down the middle. The rungs can separate. The two halves can pull apart, and then come back together again. This happens all the time. Right now, in your cells, sections of this ladder are unzipping and zipping back up, over and over, so the information can be read, so the instructions can be used. It's like opening a book to read a page, then closing it again. The twisted ladder shape isn't just beautiful, it's functional. The spiral protects the rungs, keeps them safe inside, and the way everything winds around itself makes it incredibly compact. Remember, this whole structure has to fit inside a nucleus, inside a cell, inside something so small you can't see it. The twist is how it all fits. The spiral is how nature solved the problem of packing so much information into such a tiny space. If you could shrink down and walk along this ladder, you'd spiral up and up, around and around. The railings would tower above you. The rungs would stretch out like bridges. And everywhere you looked, you'd see the same pattern repeating, the same elegant twist. It's been this shape for billions of years, long before humans existed, long before any creature walked on land. This spiral has been spiraling, holding information, making life possible. But what makes this ladder special isn't its shape. It's what's written on those rungs. It's the letters of an alphabet older than words. Every story ever told uses letters. This one uses 4, just 4, not 26 like the English alphabet, not thousands like some written languages. 4 simple letters that combine in endless ways to create everything alive. The letters are called A, T, C, and G. Those aren't their full names. Their full names are long and complicated. But scientists use these 4 letters because they're easier to remember, easier to write, easier to share. A stands for adenine. T stands for thymine. C stands for cytosine. G stands for guanine. But forget those names. Just remember, A, T, C, G, these are chemicals, tiny molecules. But you don't need to think about chemistry right now. Just think of them as letters. 4 letters in an ancient alphabet. And here's the beautiful part. These 4 letters, arranged in different orders, create everything. Every living thing on Earth is written in combinations of these 4 simple symbols. You are a sequence of A, T, C, and G. So is a rose. So is a whale. So is the grass growing outside. So is the bacteria living in your stomach right now, helping you digest your food. All of us, written in the same 4 letters, just arranged differently. Think about the English language for a moment. 26 letters can create every word you've ever spoken, every poem, every story, every song lyric, every text message, all from 26 letters in different combinations. Now, imagine doing even more with just 4. That's what DNA does. The letters pair up in specific ways. A always pairs with T, C always pairs with G, always. This isn't random. This is the rule. This is how the rungs of the ladder form. One side of the rung might be an A. The other side has to be a T. One side might be a C. The other side has to be a G. This pairing is what makes everything work. It's what allows the ladder to unzip and zip back up perfectly. It's what makes copying possible. It's what keeps the information accurate. But the order of these letters along the ladder, that's where the information lives. That's where the story is written. Imagine a sentence made of just 4 letters. A-A-T-C-G, A-T-C. That sequence means something specific. It's an instruction, a tiny piece of code. Change one letter and the meaning changes. A-A-T-C, A-T-C. Now it says something different. Your DNA is about 3 billion of these letters long. 3 billion, all arranged in a specific order. An order that makes you. No one else has this exact sequence. Not exactly. You are unique in the arrangement of these letters. Your own personal edition in the library of life. And yet, you share most of these letters with everyone else. About 99.9% of your DNA is identical to every other human's. We're all reading from very similar pages. It's that tiny fraction of difference, that 0.1%, that makes you distinct. That makes your eyes your color, your height, your laugh, your laugh. 4 letters, billions of combinations, infinite possibilities within simple rules. The wonder isn't in complexity. The wonder is in how much can be created from so little. 4 letters. But strung together, they spell out something incredible. They spell out you. So, what do these letters actually say? What story are they telling? They're telling your cells how to build you, how to maintain you, how to keep you alive. DNA is an instruction manual, a recipe book, a guide for making a human being. But it's not written in sentences. It's written in genes. A gene is like one recipe card in a massive cookbook. Each gene contains the instructions for making one specific thing, usually a protein. And proteins are the workers that do almost everything in your body. One gene might say how to make the protein that gives you brown eyes. Another gene says how to make the protein that helps you digest milk. Another controls how your blood clots when you get a cut. Thousands and thousands of genes, each one a set of instructions, each one important. And your cells read these instructions constantly. They open the library, find the gene they need, read it, and follow what it says. When you're growing, certain genes are read more often. They tell your cells how to multiply, how to become bone instead of skin, how to form a hand with 5 fingers instead of a blob of tissue. When you're injured, other genes activate. They tell your cells how to heal, how to close a wound, how to rebuild what was damaged. Right now, genes are being read inside you, telling your heart how to beat, telling your lungs how to breathe. telling your stomach how to digest, telling your brain how to think. All of this happens without you having to think about it. Your cells read the manual and do their jobs. Some instructions are about structure. These genes say what you look like: tall or short, curly hair or straight, blue eyes or brown, the shape of your nose, the length of your fingers. Other instructions are about function. These genes don't change how you look. They change how you work, how fast you metabolize food, how well you fight off infections, how quickly you heal. And some genes don't seem to do anything at all, or at least, we haven't figured out what they do yet. The library is full of mysteries we're still learning to read. But here's what's incredible. Every cell in your body has the complete manual. Every single one. A cell in your toe has the same instructions as a cell in your brain. So why is a toe cell different from a brain cell? Because they read different pages. They follow different instructions. A toe cell ignores the brain instructions and focuses on being a toe. A brain cell ignores the toe instructions and focuses on being a brain. It's like having a cookbook where every page is available, but you only make the recipes you need for tonight's dinner. Your cells are smart. They know which instructions to follow and which to ignore. They coordinate with each other. They work together, all from reading the same manual in different ways. And this manual isn't just about you as you are now. It's about you from the very beginning. The same instructions that are keeping you alive right now are the same ones that built you when you were just a tiny cluster of cells. The manual has been there from the start, guiding everything, making sure you became you. But here's what's even more amazing. This isn't just your instruction manual. It's also a history book. Because written in this library are stories from people you've never met, from times you've never known. Your DNA didn't start with you. It came from somewhere, from someone. Half of it came from your mother, half from your father. They each gave you a copy of their library, and those two copies merged to create yours. But their DNA didn't start with them either. They got it from their parents. Who got it from their parents? Who got it from theirs? Back and back and back. An unbroken chain stretching through time. Every person in your family tree gave something to you. A small piece, a few genes, a fragment of their story. And now you carry all of those fragments together. You are a collection of ancestors. In your cells right now are instructions that existed 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. Instructions that survived wars and famines and migrations. Instructions that crossed oceans and mountains and deserts. Your great-great-great-great grandmother, someone whose name you'll never know, whose face you'll never see, she gave you something. Maybe the shape of your hands, maybe the way you process certain foods, maybe a resistance to a particular disease. She's still here, in you, in your library. And not just her. Hundreds of ancestors, thousands. All of them contributing small pieces to who you are. Some pieces are obvious. You might have your grandfather's nose, your mother's eyes. These are the traits you can see, the ones people comment on at family gatherings. But other pieces are invisible, hidden in the code, a variation in how your blood carries oxygen, a particular enzyme that breaks down certain proteins. These came from ancestors too, but you'd never know just by looking. DNA is memory, biological memory. It remembers things your mind never could. It remembers the climate your ancestors lived in. If they lived somewhere cold for many generations, certain genes adapted. If they lived somewhere with intense sun, other genes responded. Your body still carries those adaptations, even if you've never been to the places your ancestors called home. This is why DNA can tell you about your heritage. Why scientists can look at your code and say, your ancestors likely came from this region, or that one. The patterns in your letters reveal journeys taken long before you were born. You are the result of countless people surviving. Countless people living long enough to have children. Countless people passing their libraries forward. Every person alive today is the product of an unbroken line. If even one ancestor had died before having children, you wouldn't exist. Not as you are. The chain would have broken, but it didn't break. It held, through ice ages and plagues, through famine and war, through everything that could have ended it. And now here you are, the latest chapter in a story that's been writing itself for thousands of generations. You carry their survival in your cells, their resilience, their luck, their strength. But if we look even further back, we find something that connects us to more than just humans. We find something that connects us to everything alive. Because you share DNA with more than you think. Go back far enough in your family tree, and you'll find ancestors who weren't quite human. Not yet. They were something close, but different. Earlier versions, older forms, and if you go back even further, you'll find ancestors who definitely weren't human at all. This isn't strange. This is beautiful, because all living things on Earth are related. All of us, connected through time, branches on the same ancient tree. And we know this because we all use the same 4 letters: A, T, C, and G. Every tree growing in a forest, every bird singing at dawn, every fish swimming in the ocean, every mushroom pushing up through soil. All of them have DNA. All of them use the same alphabet. We're all reading from variations of the same library. Your DNA and a dog's DNA are very similar, about 84% the same. That means most of your instructions match. Most of the recipes are identical. You and a mouse share about 85%. You and a chicken share about 65%. You and a banana share about 60%. A banana. Think about that for a moment. More than half of your instruction manual is the same as a banana's. This isn't because you're part banana. It's because life uses the same basic tools, the same fundamental processes, the instructions for building a cell, for copying DNA, for turning food into energy. These are ancient instructions. They work. They've worked for billions of years. So, nature kept them. When something works, when some set of instructions successfully keeps something alive, those instructions get passed on. They get copied. They get inherited. And over time, they spread through different branches of life, change slightly here and there, adapted for different purposes, but still recognizable, still related. The gene that tells your heart how to beat is similar to the gene that tells a fish's heart how to beat. Because hearts whether in fish or humans, do basically the same job. They pump, they keep blood moving. So the instructions are similar. This is how scientists know we're all related. They compare DNA from different living things and find matches, find similarities, find the same sequences showing up again and again. It's like finding the same sentence in different books and realizing those books came from the same author. Life has one author, one origin, one beginning that branched into millions of different forms. You share a common ancestor with every living thing on this planet. Go back far enough and you'll find it. Some simple cell, some early organism, some ancient form of life that existed billions of years ago. That ancestor passed its library forward, and that library split and changed and diversified. Some copies became fish, some became trees, some became fungi, some became us. But we all still carry pieces of that original library. We all still have instructions written in the same language. You are connected to the oak tree outside your window, to the birds nesting in its branches, to the insects crawling on its bark, to the bacteria in the soil feeding its roots. All of you reading from the same ancient alphabet. All of you part of the same long, beautiful story. But what keeps this ancient library from falling apart? What protects these precious pages? Every library needs librarians. This one has millions. Your DNA doesn't just sit there alone. It's surrounded by helpers, protectors, workers who tend to it constantly. These helpers are proteins, and they have one job: take care of the library. Some proteins wrap around DNA like protective sleeves. They keep it coiled tight. They prevent it from tangling. They make sure it fits safely inside the nucleus. Other proteins patrol the strands, looking for damage, checking for errors, making sure everything is correct. If they find a letter that's wrong, they fix it. They snip it out and replace it with the right one, like editors correcting a typo before anyone notices. Some proteins are readers. They move along the DNA, opening it up section by section. They read specific genes and copy the instructions. Then they close everything back up neatly when they're done. Others are copiers. When a cell needs to divide, these proteins unzip the entire double helix. They read each strand and build a matching new strand beside it. 2 complete copies from one original. And still others are guards. They control access. They decide which genes can be read and when. They're like librarians saying, "This section is open today, but that section is closed." All of this happens constantly. Right now, in every cell, millions of protein workers moving with purpose, protecting, reading, copying, repairing, all of it coordinated, all of it necessary. Without these proteins, DNA would fall apart. It would tangle into useless knots. It would accumulate errors. It would fail to pass its information on. The library needs its librarians, and these librarians are incredibly precise. They work at speeds we can barely imagine. Some can read thousands of letters per second. Others can copy entire chromosomes in minutes. But they're not rushed. They're thorough. They double-check their work. They fix mistakes before those mistakes become problems. Think about what this means. Your cells are reading and maintaining 3 billion letters of code. 3 billion. And they do it so accurately that errors are incredibly rare. When errors do happen, most of them get caught and corrected immediately. The repair proteins find them, fix them, keep the library intact. It's like having editors who catch almost every typo in a book 3 billion letters long. The precision is stunning, and all of this happens in darkness, inside the nucleus, inside the cell. No light, no eyes, just chemical signals, just proteins knowing their jobs and doing them. They've been doing this for as long as life has existed. These same types of proteins evolved and refined over billions of years, getting better at their jobs, getting more efficient. Your body trusts these proteins completely. It has to. Without them, nothing works. Without them, the instructions can't be read. The library can't function. Life can't continue. So, right now, as you rest, millions of tiny workers are tending to your library, protecting it, maintaining it, making sure every letter stays in place. They never sleep. They never stop. They're always there, quietly doing their work. And because of them, your library stays safe. Your instructions stay clear. Your story stays intact. But even with perfect librarians, mistakes happen. Pages get smudged. Letters get mixed up. And that's when something interesting begins. Not all errors are bad. Some changes create something new. Sometimes, despite all the careful checking, a letter changes. An A becomes a T, a C becomes a G. Just one letter, different from what it was before. This is called a mutation, a change in the code. Most of the time, these changes don't matter. They happen in parts of the library that aren't being read. Or they change a letter, but the instruction stays the same. The sentence means the same thing even with a different word. Sometimes, though, a mutation changes the meaning. It creates a new instruction, a different recipe. And sometimes, rarely, that new instruction is better than the old one. Imagine a mutation that makes an animal's fur slightly thicker, just a tiny bit. In a warm climate, this doesn't help. It might even make life harder. But if the climate gets colder, suddenly that thicker fur matters. Suddenly, that animal survives winter better than its neighbors. It lives longer, has more offspring, and those offspring inherit the mutation. Over time, more and more animals in that area have the thicker fur gene, not because they chose it, but because it helped them survive. Because the library changed, and the change was useful. This is how evolution works. Not through big dramatic leaps, but through tiny changes. One letter at a time, one mutation at a time. Most mutations disappear. The animal dies, or it lives but doesn't have children. The changed code doesn't get passed on, but some mutations stick around. They spread. They become part of the story. Look back at your ancestors. Somewhere along the line, someone had a mutation that you now carry. Maybe it was the ability to digest milk as an adult. Maybe it was resistance to a certain disease. Maybe it was something you don't even notice. But it happened. One letter changed, and because it helped, it stayed. And now, it's part of you. Evolution is just the library rewriting itself, slowly, over thousands of generations, trying new versions, keeping what works, letting go of what doesn't. It's not planned. There's no grand designer sitting down and deciding what should change. It's random. Letters change by accident, by copying errors, by damage from the environment. But the results aren't random, because only the useful changes survive. Only the mutations that help, or at least don't hurt, get passed on. This has been happening for billions of years. Since the first libraries existed, small changes adding up, branching out, creating new forms of life. The library you carry now is different from the library your ancestors carried 1 million years ago. Not completely different, but changed, edited, updated, and it will keep changing. Your children will have slightly different libraries than you, and their children will have slightly different libraries than them. The story keeps being rewritten, one mutation at a time, one generation at a time. Some people fear mutations. They think of them as mistakes, as damage, as things that cause disease. And yes, some mutations do cause problems. But without mutations, we wouldn't be here at all. Without changes, life would have stayed simple. Single cells, nothing more. Every complex form of life exists because of billions of mutations that happened to work out. You are the result of countless useful accidents. And every so often, this library does something truly remarkable. It copies itself, completely. Imagine copying an entire library by hand. Every book, every page, every word. Your cells do this constantly. When a cell divides, when one cell becomes 2, it has to duplicate everything, including its DNA. The entire library must be copied. All 3 billion letters, every single one. And the copy needs to be perfect, or as close to perfect as possible. This happens inside you all the time. When you grow, when you heal, when your skin replaces old cells with new ones. Division, copying, creating. The process is elegant. First, the twisted ladder unzips down the middle. The rungs separate. The 2 strands pull apart. Now you have 2 halves of a ladder instead of one whole. Each half becomes a template, a guide. Special proteins move in, reading each exposed half. Where they see an A, they attach a T across from it. Where they see a C, they attach a G. Remember, A always pairs with T. It always pairs with G. The rules are simple. The execution is precise. Slowly, piece by piece, new matching strands form alongside the old ones. What was one complete ladder becomes 2 complete ladders, each one identical to the original. Each new ladder has 1 old strand and 1 new strand, half memory, half fresh copy. And the precision is astonishing. The copying proteins make about 1 error every 10 million letters. 1 mistake in 10 million tries. That's an accuracy rate better than any human copyist could ever achieve. Think about it. 3 billion letters, and only about 300 mistakes on average. 300 errors in 3 billion. And even most of those get caught. The repair proteins come through afterward, checking for mistakes, fixing what they find, bringing the error rate even lower. This is how your cells maintain your library across time. Every time a cell divides, the instructions get passed on. Preserved, protected, When you were just beginning, when you were a single fertilized cell, you had one copy of your library. Then that cell divided. 2 cells, 2 copies. Then those divided. 4 cells, 4 copies, then 8, then 16, then 32, doubling and doubling and doubling every single time the library was copied. The same 3 billion letters, over and over. Now you have trillions of cells, trillions of copies, all made from that first one. And the copies are so accurate that a cell in your toe has essentially the same instructions as a cell in your brain. The same library, copied perfectly through countless divisions. This is also how you heal. When you cut your finger, cells near the wound start dividing, making new copies of themselves. Filling in the gap, the library gets copied again and again until the wound closes. When you were growing as a child, your cells divided constantly, millions of times, each time copying the library, each time passing the instructions forward. Even now, as an adult, cells divide. Your skin replaces itself every few weeks. Your stomach lining renews every few days. Blood cells are created continuously. Each new cell needs the library. So the library gets copied millions of times a day, in you, in everyone, and almost always the copy is perfect. The story continues unchanged, but sometimes the library needs to do more than just copy itself. Sometimes it needs to send messages out into the cell. And that's where another kind of library worker comes in. DNA holds the instructions, but it doesn't leave the library. It sends messengers instead. Think of DNA as the master copy, the original, too valuable to risk. It stays safe in the nucleus, protected and preserved. But the rest of the cell needs those instructions. The workers outside the nucleus need to know what to build, what to do. So the cell makes temporary copies, messenger copies. These copies are called RNA. And they're similar to DNA, but different in important ways. RNA is like DNA's simpler cousin, still made of letters, still carrying information, but single-stranded instead of double. Just one line instead of a twisted ladder. And RNA can leave the nucleus. It can travel. It can carry messages out into the cell where the actual work happens. Here's how it works. When a cell needs to make a specific protein, it finds the gene for that protein in the DNA. Just that one section, just those specific instructions. Then, special proteins come in and unzip that section of the double helix. They open up just enough to expose the gene, to read it. Other proteins move along the exposed gene, reading the letters one by one. And as they read, they build a matching RNA copy. It's like photocopying one page from a giant book. You don't copy the whole book, just the page you need. The RNA copy is temporary. It doesn't need to last forever. It just needs to last long enough to deliver its message. Once the RNA is complete, it detaches. The DNA zips back up. Everything returns to normal in the nucleus. And the RNA molecule drifts out through tiny pores in the nuclear membrane, out into the main part of the cell. It's carrying instructions, a recipe, a specific set of directions for building one protein. Out in the cell, other structures are waiting. They're called ribosomes, and their job is to read RNA messages and build proteins based on what they read. The RNA finds a ribosome and attaches to it. The ribosome starts reading the message, letter by letter, and as it reads, it builds. It assembles a protein, one piece at a time, following the instructions exactly. When the protein is complete, the RNA's job is done. It breaks apart, gets recycled. Its letters get reused for other messages. Meanwhile, the new protein goes off to do whatever job it was built for. And if the cell needs more of that same protein, it just makes more RNA copies of that gene. This system is brilliant. DNA stays safe, never leaves the nucleus, never gets worn out by constant use. But its information travels through RNA messengers, through temporary copies that carry instructions wherever they're needed. Your cells are doing this constantly, making RNA, sending messages, building proteins, all based on reading specific sections of your library. Some genes get read all the time, the instructions for basic functions, energy production, cell maintenance. These messages go out constantly. Other genes only get read when needed. Instructions for healing a wound, or fighting an infection, or growing during childhood. The cell knows which messages to send and when. It's coordinated, responsive, intelligent in its own chemical way. And what those workers build with those messages, what they create from those temporary instructions, that's where life really happens. The messages become things. Instructions become reality. Those RNA messages we talked about, they don't just carry information, they transform it. They turn written code into physical action. The ribosome reads the RNA message 3 letters at a time. Each set of 3 letters is a code for one building block, one piece of a protein. These building blocks are called amino acids. There are 20 different types, and proteins are made by stringing them together in specific orders. The order matters, just like letters in a word. Change the order and you change the meaning. Change the protein. So the ribosome reads. 3 letters. Attach this amino acid. 3 more letters. Attach that amino acid. Over and over, building a chain. The chain grows longer. Dozens of amino acids. Sometimes hundreds. All connected in a precise sequence. When the chain is complete, something remarkable happens. It folds. The long string of amino acids twists and bends into a specific 3-dimensional shape. And that shape is everything. That shape determines what the protein can do, what job it performs. Some proteins become enzymes, chemical workers that speed up reactions in your body. They help digest food. They help build new molecules. They help break down waste. Other proteins become structural. They form the framework of your cells, the scaffolding that holds everything in place. They create muscle fibers, skin tissue, hair. Some proteins are transporters. They carry things around your body. Oxygen, nutrients, signals. Others are defenders. Antibodies that recognize invaders, that mark them for destruction, that protect you from disease. Your body is made mostly of proteins. Your skin, your hair, your muscles, your organs, all built from proteins that were built from RNA messages that were copied from DNA instructions. Information becoming matter, code becoming flesh. And every single protein starts the same way, as a sequence in your DNA, as letters in the library. Right now, your cells are building proteins, thousands of them, following instructions, reading messages, assembling chains. Some proteins last for days, others break down in hours. So they need to be constantly replaced, constantly rebuilt. The messages keep going out. The ribosomes keep reading. The proteins keep forming. It's an endless cycle of creation. Instructions leading to messages, leading to proteins, leading to you. You are the result of this process, happening trillions of times, in trillions of cells, building and rebuilding and maintaining. When you eat food, proteins break it down. When you move your hand, proteins make your muscles contract. When you think a thought, proteins transmit signals between brain cells. Everything you do requires proteins, and every protein requires instructions from the library. The library doesn't do the work directly. It sends out the plans, and the workers follow those plans precisely. It's like an architect designing a building. The architect doesn't lay the bricks, doesn't install the windows, but without the architect's plans, nothing would get built correctly. DNA is the architect. RNA is the blueprint being carried to the construction site. And proteins are the workers, the materials, the building itself. All of it connected. All of it flowing from those 4 simple letters arranged in specific ways. Words becoming flesh. Information becoming life. But who wrote this library in the first place? Where did these instructions come from? Every book has a first word. Every library has a first book. But this one, we're still not sure. Scientists have been asking this question for decades. How did DNA begin? Where did the first library come from? And the honest answer is, we don't know exactly. We have ideas, theories, educated guesses based on chemistry and probability, but no certainty. What we do know is that life on Earth started simple. Very simple. Much simpler than what exists now. The earliest life forms weren't like us. They were tiny, single cells, basic structures, and their libraries were probably much smaller, shorter sequences, fewer instructions, maybe just enough code to make copies of themselves, to gather energy, to survive. Scientists think RNA might have come first, before DNA. RNA is simpler. It can store information like DNA, but it can also do things. It can act as a worker and a storage system at once. So maybe the first libraries were RNA libraries. And over time, DNA evolved as a more stable way to store information long term. Or maybe DNA and RNA emerged together. Or maybe something else came first. Something we haven't thought of yet. The truth is, the beginning happened so long ago that the evidence is hard to find. We're talking about billions of years. Most traces of those earliest days are gone. But we can imagine. We can picture a young Earth. Oceans full of simple chemicals. Lightning, heat, energy flowing through water and rock. And in that chaos, somehow, molecules started organizing themselves, started forming patterns, started making copies. It probably happened countless times. Most of those early attempts failed, broke apart, didn't work, but some survived. Some patterns were stable enough to persist. to copy themselves, to become more complex over time. And those survivors kept evolving, kept changing, kept adding to their libraries. Over millions of years, the instructions grew longer, more detailed, more sophisticated. Simple cells became complex cells. Single cells became groups of cells working together. Simple organisms became increasingly intricate. But it all traces back to that first pattern, that first successful sequence that managed to copy itself. We may never know exactly what that sequence was, or exactly how it formed. The mystery is part of the beauty. Science is comfortable with not knowing everything, with saying, we're still figuring this out, we're still looking, still learning. And maybe that's appropriate. Maybe the origin of life should be mysterious, should inspire wonder rather than complete understanding. What matters is that it happened. Somehow, in conditions we can barely imagine, the library began. And once it started, it never stopped growing. From those first simple sequences to the 3 billion letters you carry now. From basic survival instructions to the complex code that makes a human being. The library expanded, evolved, became richer and more detailed with each passing generation. You are the result of that long, slow accumulation, of information building on information, of instructions refining themselves over unimaginable stretches of time. The first page was written billions of years ago, and the story is still being written now, in you, in every living thing. What we do know is this: once it started, it never stopped. The library just kept growing, kept adding stories, kept becoming more. Most of the library isn't even books. Most of it is space. Here's something surprising. Only about 2% of your DNA actually codes for proteins. 2%. That's the part that gets read and turned into the workers we've been talking about. The other 98%? For a long time, scientists didn't know what it did. Some called it junk DNA, leftover code, evolutionary debris. But that name was hasty, dismissive, because we're learning that the quiet parts of the library matter too. Some of those sequences don't make proteins, but they control when protein-making genes turn on or off. They're like switches, regulators. They tell the cell, read this gene now. Don't read that one yet. Without these control sequences, your genes would all be active all the time, or none of them would be active. Either way, chaos. So some of the quiet DNA is management, coordination, making sure the right instructions get read at the right times. Other parts seem to be structural. They help organize how DNA folds and packages itself inside the nucleus. They create landmarks, boundaries, sections, like blank pages between chapters in a book. They don't contain words, but they make the book easier to navigate. And some sequences still puzzle us. We're not sure what they do, or if they do anything at all. Maybe they're truly leftover code, remnants of ancient genes that no longer work, fossils in the library. Or maybe they have purposes we haven't discovered yet, functions too subtle for us to detect with current technology. The point is, the spaces matter. The gaps between genes aren't empty in a meaningless way. They're part of the structure, part of how everything works together. Think about music. The notes matter, but so do the rests. The silence between sounds gives the melody shape, rhythm, meaning. DNA is similar. The genes are important, but so is everything around them. The context, the spacing, the organization. If you removed all the non-coding DNA, if you kept only the 2% that makes proteins, things would fall apart. The genes wouldn't function properly. The cell would struggle to know when to read what. So, even though most of your library doesn't contain traditional instructions, it's not junk. It's not waste. It's the formatting, the punctuation, the page numbers, and chapter headings. All the invisible structure that makes the actual text usable. And here's another interesting thing. The amount of non-coding DNA varies between species. Simple organisms have less. Their libraries are more compact, more dense with genes. Complex organisms like humans have more. Our libraries are spacious. Lots of room between the genes. Why? We're still figuring that out. Maybe complexity requires more regulation, more control sequences, more organizational structure. Or maybe some of it really is just accumulated leftovers. Mutations and duplications that didn't hurt anything, so they stuck around. Either way, your library is mostly space. Mostly quiet sequences that don't make proteins, but somehow matter to the overall function. It's humbling. We thought the important parts would be obvious. The loud parts, the parts that do things. But biology is more subtle than that. The quiet parts have their own roles, their own significance. And in those quiet spaces, something else hides. Echoes of visitors from long, long ago. Your DNA contains more than just human instructions. It contains invaders that became part of you. Millions of years ago, viruses infected your ancestors. They injected their own genetic code into cells. That's what viruses do. They're parasites. They hijack living cells and force them to make copies of the virus. Usually, this happens in regular body cells. The cell gets infected, makes new viruses, then dies. The infection doesn't get passed on to offspring. But sometimes, a virus infected a reproductive cell, an egg or a sperm. And when that cell became part of a new organism, the viral DNA came along. It got copied. It got inherited. It became part of the library. And now, millions of years later, you still carry pieces of those ancient viruses in your genome. About 8% of your DNA came from viruses. 8%. That's more than the 2% that codes for all your proteins. You are, in a measurable way, part virus. These sequences are called endogenous retroviruses. They're fossils, molecular fossils. Evidence of infections that happened so long ago, we can trace them across entire species. Humans share many of the same viral sequences, which means those infections happened to our common ancestors. Before we branched into different populations, some of these viral fossils are shared with other primates. Chimpanzees have some of the same ones. Gorillas too, because the infection happened before our species split apart. It's like finding the same ancient artifact buried in different locations. Evidence of a shared past. Most of these viral sequences don't do anything anymore. They're broken, mutated beyond function. Just remnants, echoes. But some of them have been repurposed. Your body found uses for them. One viral sequence helps form the placenta during pregnancy. It allows the mother's blood vessels to connect with the developing babies. Without this viral gene, pregnancy as we know it might not be possible. An ancient enemy became essential. An invader became part of the family. This happens in evolution. Random additions sometimes turn out to be useful, and if they're useful, they stick around. They become permanent. So you carry these visitors everywhere you go, in every cell, part of your permanent library. They came uninvited. They inserted themselves into the DNA of your distant ancestors. And over time, they just became part of what it means to be human. It's strange to think about, that pieces of ancient viruses are now pieces of you. That something foreign became familiar. Something hostile became harmless or even helpful. But life is messy like that. It's not clean categories, not pure lineages. It's a mix, a collaboration sometimes, a theft that became ownership. Your genome is a historical record. It shows what happened to your ancestors, what infected them, what they survived, what became part of them. Those viral sequences are scars, marks, evidence of battles fought at the cellular level millions of years ago. And you carry those marks forward, not as wounds, but as inheritance. Enemies that became part of the family. Invaders that became permanent residents. DNA that was once foreign, but is now simply yours. But this library doesn't just hold the past. It's also constantly being edited, right now, in response to your life. The library isn't set in stone. It changes as you live. The letters of your DNA stay mostly the same throughout your life. The A's, T's, C's, and G's don't usually change once you're born. But how those letters get read, that can change a lot. This is called epigenetics, and it's one of the most fascinating discoveries in recent biology. Think of it like bookmarks. The text in a book stays the same, but you can mark certain pages, highlight certain passages, make some sections easier to find and others harder to access. Your cells do this with DNA. They add chemical markers to certain genes. These markers don't change the letters, but they change whether those genes get read or not. Some markers say, read this gene more often. Others say, ignore this gene for now. And these markers respond to your life, to your experiences, to your environment. What you eat can affect which genes get bookmarked. If you eat well, certain health-related genes might become more active. If you eat poorly, others might get suppressed. Where you live matters. If you're in a stressful environment, stress response genes get marked. They become easier to activate. Your body adapts to what it encounters. How you sleep, how you exercise, whether you smoke, whether you experience trauma. All of these things can add bookmarks to your DNA. The library stays the same, but which pages get read changes based on your life. This is how identical twins can become different. They start with the same DNA, the exact same letters in the exact same order. But they live different lives. They have different experiences. They eat different foods. They encounter different stresses. And over time, their epigenetic markers diverge. The same genes get marked differently. Some become more active in one twin, less active in the other. By the time they're adults, their gene expression patterns can be quite different. Even though their DNA sequence is still nearly identical. You are not just your code, you're also how your code gets read. And here's something even more remarkable. Some of these bookmarks can be passed to your children. Not all of them, but some, especially ones related to stress or nutrition. If your grandmother experienced famine, that might have marked certain genes in her DNA. Genes related to storing energy, to surviving scarcity, and some of those marks might have been passed to your parent, and then to you. You might carry epigenetic echoes of your grandmother's hardship. Your body might be slightly better at conserving energy because of what she went through. It's a kind of inheritance beyond the DNA sequence itself. Environmental memory, written in chemical tags. Your life becomes part of your biology. Your experiences leave marks, not in the letters themselves, but in how they're read. Stress can bookmark certain genes, making them more sensitive. Exercise can bookmark others, making them more efficient. You're not just reading the library, you're editing it. Not the words, but the annotations, the emphasis, the interpretation. And those edits matter. They affect how your cells behave, how your body responds, who you become. The library is alive, responsive, changing in conversation with your life. And if you could read this entire library, every page, every letter, what would you find? Scientists can now read DNA. They can look at your library and tell you what's inside. This wasn't possible for most of human history. Your genetic code was invisible, private, unknowable. But now, for a few $100s, you can send a sample of your cells to a laboratory, and they can read parts of your DNA. Sometimes all of it. They can tell you where your ancestors came from, which populations they belong to, which migrations they followed. Your DNA contains a map of ancient journeys, traces of Africa, of Europe, of Asia, of wherever your family line traveled over thousands of years. The tests can show you relatives you didn't know existed, distant cousins, people who share small fragments of your library, branches of your family tree you never knew about. They can also reveal health information, genetic risks, variations that make certain diseases more likely, a gene variant that increases cancer risk, another that affects how you metabolize medications, another that influences heart disease probability. All of this information written in your cells, present from birth, now readable. But reading the library raises questions, deep ones. Do you want to know everything written there? Do you want to know about diseases you might develop decades from now? Conditions you can't prevent? Some people say yes. Knowledge is power. Knowing lets you prepare, lets you make informed choices about your health. Others say no. Some information is a burden. Knowing about inevitable risks creates worry without providing solutions. There's no right answer. It's personal, individual. The library can tell you about your ancestry, but it can't tell you who you are. It can show genetic connections, but not emotional ones. You might discover your father isn't your biological father, or that you have half-siblings you never knew about, or that your family stories about heritage aren't quite accurate. This information can be freeing, or devastating, or both. The library is honest. It doesn't care about family secrets, about comfortable stories. It just reports what's written. And sometimes what's written contradicts what you've been told, what you've believed. Scientists can also look at your DNA and predict certain traits: height, eye color, some aspects of personality, though that's still uncertain science. But predictions aren't certainties. The library provides possibilities, not guarantees. Two people with the same gene for a disease might have very different outcomes. One develops it, one doesn't, because DNA isn't everything. Environment matters, choices matter, chance matters. The code influences you, but it doesn't determine you completely. Still, being able to read the library is powerful, revolutionary. It changes how we think about ourselves, about health, about identity. You can trace your ancestry back thousands of years. You can find relatives across the globe. You can learn about risks and plan accordingly, but you can also obsess, worry, reduce yourself to sequences and probabilities. The library is information. What you do with that information, how you interpret it, how you let it affect your life, that's up to you. Reading your DNA is like reading your own story, but it's a story still being written, still unfolding. The letters provide the plot outline, but you're still the one living it. But even with all this knowledge, one question remains. What makes you, you? Two people can have almost identical DNA and be completely different people. So, what else is there? Identical twins prove this. They start with the same genetic code. Every letter matches. Same library, same instructions. But they grow into different individuals, different preferences, different talents, different personalities. One might love music, the other might not care about it at all. One might be anxious, the other calm. One might develop a disease, the other might stay healthy. Same DNA, different lives. This tells us something important. The library provides possibilities, but it doesn't write the final story. You have genes that could make you musical, but if you never touch an instrument, if you're never exposed to music, those genes don't matter much. You have genes related to athletic ability, but if you never exercise, never train, never push your body, that potential stays dormant. The code says what could be. Your life determines what actually is. This is the nature versus nurture question. And the answer is both. Always both. Your genes influence you. They set ranges, tendencies, inclinations. But your experiences shape how those tendencies express themselves. A child might have genes for height, genes that could make them tall, but if they're malnourished growing up, they might not reach that potential. Someone might have genes that make addiction more likely, but if they never encounter addictive substances, or if they have strong support systems, those genes might never become relevant. The library suggests it provides the raw materials, but you build the actual structure, and your choices matter. What you eat, how you move, who you spend time with, what you learn, what you practice. All of this affects who you become. Not by changing your DNA, though it can affect your epigenetic markers, but by shaping how you develop, how you grow. Two people with identical genes for musical ability will develop very differently if one practices piano every day and the other never touches an instrument. The gene provides the capacity. The practice makes it real. This is empowering. It means you're not trapped by your code. You're not predetermined. Yes, your genes influence you. They make some things easier, some things harder. They create starting points, but they don't create endpoints. You are more than your blueprint, more than the sum of your sequences. You are what happens when those sequences interact with a world, with experiences, with choices, with other people. The library is important, essential. Without it, you wouldn't exist. But the library alone isn't enough to understand you, to explain you. You are the library, plus everything that's happened to you. Every meal, every conversation, every triumph and failure, every decision. You are nature and nurture, code and experience, blueprint and building. And this complexity is beautiful. It means you're not just a readout of genetic information. You're a living, changing, growing person. The genes provide the foundation, but you build the house. Some rooms were sketched in the plans. Others you added yourself. Some walls were load-bearing from the start. Others you reinforced through effort and time. You are collaborative work, biology and biography together. The library suggests the story, but you write the actual words. And that brings us to perhaps the most beautiful thing about this tiny library, what it tells us about who we are. So we've journeyed through this small library. We've seen its letters, its structure, its stories. But what does it all mean? Let's step back. Let's see the bigger picture. You are information made physical. You are code that became matter. Instructions that became flesh and bone and thought. 3 billion letters arranged in a specific order. And somehow that order creates consciousness, creates the ability to wonder about itself. You are a library reading itself, and you carry history in every cell, not just your personal history, not just your family's history, but the history of life itself. Every ancestor who survived long enough to reproduce, their success is written in you. Their adaptations, their lucky mutations, their resilience. You are the result of an unbroken chain stretching back billions of years. Every link held, every generation passed the library forward, and you're connected to all life through shared code. The same 4 letters, the same basic instructions. You and the trees, and the birds, and the bacteria, all reading from variations of the same ancient text. This is profound. You are not separate from nature. You are nature, made of the same stuff, running on the same fundamental processes. The library is both ancient and brand new. The instructions are billions of years old. But your specific combination is unique, has never existed before, will never exist again in quite the same way. You are rare and you are common, unique and universal at once. The library is both determined and flexible. Your genes set patterns, create tendencies, but they don't lock you into a single path. They leave room for variation, for choice, for chance. You are predictable and you are free. The more we learn about DNA, the more we realize how much we don't know. We can read the letters, but we're still learning the language, still deciphering meaning. Every answer reveals new questions. Every discovery opens new mysteries. The library is clearer now than it's ever been, and yet still mysterious, still full of sections we don't understand. This is the beauty of it, the complexity, the depth. You are not a simple machine running predictable code. You are an emergent property of billions of molecular interactions happening simultaneously. You are more than your parts, more than your sequences, more than your genes and proteins and cells. You are what happens when matter organizes itself in just the right way, when information becomes aware of itself. The smallest library in the universe contains the instructions for something that can read, understand, and wonder at those very instructions. You are the library and the librarian and the reader all at once. And tonight, as you rest, this library keeps working, quietly, perfectly, writing and rewriting the story of you, cells dividing, genes being read, proteins being built, repairs being made, all of it coordinated, all of it necessary. The library never stops. It maintains you while you sleep. It heals you while you dream. It keeps your heart beating and your lungs breathing without any conscious effort from you. You can rest. The library will keep working. It's been doing this since you began. It will keep doing it as long as you live. And tomorrow you'll wake up, still you, still reading from the same library, still writing your own story within the framework it provides. So, here we are, back where we started. Inside you, in the smallest library in the universe. Right now, in this moment, your cells are reading from this library, building you, maintaining you, changing you. We've traveled far tonight, from the scale of atoms to the span of billions of years, from 4 simple letters to the complexity of a living, breathing person, and all of it exists in something so small you could never see it. So small that trillions of copies fit inside you. The smallest library in the universe, but containing more information, more history, more possibility than any library made of books and shelves. Think about what this means as you drift towards sleep. You are ancient, and you are new. You carry instructions written billions of years ago, and instructions being edited right now, based on how you lived today. You are connected to everything alive, every plant, every animal, every microbe, all of you speaking the same molecular language. You are unique. Your exact sequence has never existed before. When you're gone, it will never exist again. You are the result of chance and necessity, random mutations and careful selection, accidents that worked out, patterns that persisted. You are information that became aware of itself, code that can contemplate its own existence. Right now, as you listen to this, as you prepare for rest, your library is active. Genes are being read, messages are being sent, proteins are being built. Your body is repairing damage from today, replacing cells that wore out, fighting off infections you don't even know about, consolidating memories, processing emotions. All of it directed by instructions written in letters too small to see. The library works in darkness, in silence, without any need for your attention. It's been doing this since you were a single cell. It will keep doing it as long as you live. You can trust it. You can rest. The library knows its job. The proteins know their roles. The cells know what to do. You are held together by processes older than mountains, maintained by systems refined over billions of years. You are safe in the care of your own biology. We've taken this quiet journey together tonight, exploring the tiny library that lives in all of us. I hope it brought you some sense of wonder, some appreciation for the elegant complexity that makes you possible. If you found peace in this exploration, if you'd like more journeys like this, I invite you to subscribe. We're here every night with a new wonder to discover, a new question to explore gently, a new way to drift towards sleep while learning something beautiful. And if you'd like, leave a comment about what amazed you most tonight. Was it the scale, the history, the connection to all life? I read every comment, and they help me understand what resonates with you, what you'd like to explore next. Before you drift off completely, if this journey brought you calm, if it helped you see yourself in a new way, consider giving this video a like. It helps others find these quiet explorations. And subscribe if you'd like to join us again. Because tomorrow night, we're going somewhere extraordinary. We're diving into the hidden world of dreams, where your brain writes stories while you sleep, where memories reorganize themselves, where your mind does its most creative work in the darkness. You won't want to miss it. For now, rest well. Let your library do its quiet work. Let your cells write their stories in the ancient language of life. Until then, sleep peacefully. And thank you for joining me in the smallest library in the universe.